Yes, we're following the 30 tornadoes that wreaked havoc and destruction in 6 states. Kentucky was the hardest hit. Arizona, Illinois, Mississippi, Missouri, and Tennessee, they also saw damage as well. Now, this is a tornado in December, a spree of tornadoes in December, which is rare. And per CNN, at least 30 tornadoes were reported. The death toll is increasing, Georgia. And so just ahead of the holidays, the South is reeling with all of the devastation that came as a result of the destruction. I have a clip here of Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky on Face the Nation on what his state needs in the aftermath of the tornado destruction. He stated rebuilding of entire communities. And he said, we would have lost thousands of homes because when the tornado hit, it did not rip off a roof, Georgia. He said that it obliterated houses. Let's take a listen to that clip.
Before the tornado hit, you said Kentucky was short on nurses. I've read you're now short on housing as well. What kind of assistance do you need?
Well, what we're doing right now is opening up our state parks and welcoming in any family that needs help. But we're also good people that look out after one another. And we opened 11 shelters. There's only 6 still open because in times of difficulty, we open our doors to family and sometimes even to strangers. It's been amazing to see the outpouring of support from other Kentucky communities and communities around. What we're going to need as we move forward, though, is massive damage, rebuilding of entire communities. We're going to have lost thousands of homes because when this tornado hit, it didn't rip a roof off. I mean, it obliterated houses, just totally gone. So there's going to be a lot of work, and Kentuckians need to know that we're going to be with them, and the country's going to be with them, not just today and not just this week, but in the months and even the years to come.
As you rebuild, how do you account for what seems to be extraordinarily extreme weather?
Well, as of today, just a day after, we're worried about finding other Kentuckians. We're worried about providing shelter for them. We are grieving with so many families, and we'll worry about or think about the cause once we have everybody stabilized.
Now, Georgia, obviously our thoughts and prayers and sending love to all of the people who are suffering in this moment. But that last question, I think, was critical. While Kentuckians are rightly, and across the South, everyone is rightly recovering from this tragedy, we have to look at the fact that this is a rare occurrence, a string of tornadoes in December causing this level of havoc. It is a result of what's happening in our climate. There's no question about it. But if we continue to ignore what's happening with climate change, we're going to see an increase in the intensity of these storms continue. We've seen the intensity of hurricanes increase. And we've also seen the amount of willingness to ignore the reality about climate change increase amongst Republican politicians. 2 of them from the state of Kentucky, Mitch McConnell and Senator Rand Paul, both senators from the state of Kentucky, rightfully and correctly requesting federal aid and the declaration of an emergency for their state. Obviously, that is all right and proper. But we do have to take in consideration the fact that these are characters who are actively standing in the way of us doing anything to prevent future storms like this.
Yeah, well, it's because it's cheaper for them to ignore it. And 9 times out of 10, their home has not been destroyed in a storm like this. And so, I mean, we talked about this during the oil spills and the wildfires, where a lot of these corporations who are contributing to the destruction of our environment, they will actually make more money, you know, if they just keep doing what they're doing, right. Even if they're fined, then actually stopping, assessing how their corporation could be greener, thinking about fixing some of the problematic issues with their warehouses. But that costs money and it affects their bottom line. And so most of the corporations we see continue to contaminate our soil, contaminate our air, and then they just get a little fine. And that fine, until the federal government decides to make those fines heavier, it's cheaper for them to get fined and for them to keep doing what they're doing. But at the expense of what? At the expense of entire towns, at the expenses of entire cities, at the expense of how many people died, how many people lost their lives in the storm.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
And so as long as they're removed from this issue, they're going to keep not prioritizing it.
Yeah. And coming up in Like It or Not, we're going to dig into this a little bit more, because when you mentioned the warehouses, it didn't remind me of the tragedy that happened at the Amazon facility during the storms. And the fact that these workers at Amazon had to stay on the clock while there was an active tornado warning. So we're going to dig into that a lot more during the Like It or Not segment.
Oh, well, I was going to say, don't get me fired up because I got a lot to say about that. But I'll digress. I just hope you guys talk about the phone ban that made it virtually impossible for those workers to know a storm was coming, or impossible for them to call for help when they needed it, and how Amazon is responsible for the position that they put their employees in once again.
No, well, hang on now, Sister Ford. Let's talk about it right now. We still have about 3 minutes left, right? So the way, and this is in the backdrop now. Now, this is in the backdrop of Jeff Bezos and all of his adventures into space. And while he is no longer the president and CEO of Amazon, David Clark he is, but this is the money that is sending Jeff Bezos into space, right? And so it is that type of oppression that you're talking about, the ban on phones to increase worker productivity. And then these workers could not even be aware of the destruction that was coming their way. And so they lost quite a few workers in the Amazon warehouse. There has to be some accountability, Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, a policy like that, think about your phone. It goes off to alert you that a storm is coming. Your phone goes off to alert you that there's severe weather happening near you. That gives you an opportunity to respond. That gives you an opportunity to go somewhere safe, or to leave the facility, to go check on your children and get them to safety, And so Amazon, and it's bans on phones at Amazon warehouses that remind me why so many Americans are quitting their jobs.
That's it.
People don't want to be subjected to environments that are that violate your own humanity, your own ability to be connected to the world, to know what's happening around you, so that you can respond in a timely manner, so that you can care for your family and your loved ones. I can't imagine. My daughter, she calls me. I don't care where I am. I could be in a meeting. I could be at work. It doesn't matter. My 13-year-old daughter, if I'm not at home when she gets home from school, she calls me. She FaceTimes me. And I step out for 5 minutes and I ask her how her day was, and I make sure she gets home safely. You're not taking my phone away. I am a grown woman. I'm an adult, and I'm also a professional. And I think I can get my job done while also getting my job done as a parent, which is my first responsibility. Like, it just, the treatment of some of these corporations is so inhumane that America is not, I don't think, going to fully reckon with itself in terms of the great resignations until corporations start treating people like they're human.
I want to read this quote before we get out of here. This is David Clark. Just two quotes. One is David Clark, the CEO now of Amazon. And this is what he said last night in response to the storms. He said, "We're deeply saddened by the news that members of our Amazon family passed away as a result of the storm in Edwardsville, Illinois. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims, their loved ones, and everyone who has been impacted." But a friend on Twitter dug up a little news on David Clark. While he's expressing these condolences at the top as now the leader of CEO of Amazon, when he was a manager in the warehouse, his job, he made his notoriety, his fame off of how many warehouse workers he could fire because he thought they were slacking. And so that type of mentality has gone from a warehouse all the way to the top of Amazon, and it is trickled down. There's no wealth trickling down. It is the oppression. It is the firm fist of managers that is trickling down at Amazon, and we saw the result of it last in these tornadoes.